Hello, everyone, and welcome to TEP Talks Professional Series, a groundbreaking new podcast dedicated to showcasing the diverse career journey and professional accomplishments of TEP alumni, brought to you by the TEP Foundation. I am your host, Stan Silverman, URI Class of 79, Tau Omega 402. It's my privilege to speak to TEP brothers across a wide spectrum of industries, gaining insights into their fields, advice for breaking in, and a realistic look at the day-to-day work behind some of the most impactful careers in the modern economy. Personally, I found so many of the brothers with whom I spoke to have such interesting stories. I'm sure that in addition to the educational benefit that you will gain from watching and listening to these professionals, the stories that they tell are just plain fascinating. So pick one, anyone, or pick them all. I'm certain that it'll be worth your while. Thank you and happy watching. Hello, everyone. Today, I have the privilege of speaking with Marc Tolman, Queens College, class of 92. Marc is a senior accountant / tax supervisor. So, without further ado, here we go.
I'm going to try to make it a little bit louder.
Normally, no one complains that Stan's not loud enough.
How are you?
I'm well. How are you?
Busy.
Tell me a little bit about yourself, what you do.
So I am a tax manager for a regional accounting firm that is part of a larger accounting firm that does what are called PCAOB audits. And we are the 20th largest firm that does those
In the country?
in the world.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So, um, I have nothing to do with them. I don't want to have anything to do with them. It's very regulatory, and I keep my arm's distance
I'm sorry. You keep your arm's distance from whom?
from doing the audits.
Isn't that what? I'm
No, I
sorry.
do. I do tax. I do individual and corporate.
Okay.
There's a carve out. The company that I work for is a carve out of this larger firm that does almost exclusively the PCAOB audits.
Okay. So you do corporate and individual taxes,
Yes,
and then the bigger company does audits
correct.
on. So I had a store in a mall,
Hmm.
and I was required to pay the mall 10% of my gross sales
Hmm.
over a certain number. They sent in a company to audit my books.
Hmm.
Your company does that?
No.
Okay.
Now we'll get you crazy with the accounting. So there are four or five types of different audits, maybe even six. You have the regulatory audits, which encompasses four different audits for the bigger companies, such as General Motors. If you are a publicly traded company, doesn't matter what size you are, doesn't matter what stock value you are, you have to have what's called a PCAOB audit that basically says, yes, the numbers, we bless the numbers, the company is doing the right thing. It is for the Public Company Accounting Oversight Board, which was spun out when you had the Enron blow up and the Arthur Andersen blow up and dot, 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 dot. Um, it is a completely separate company. Now, when you do an audit, as I said, there's four major audits that are done. We're going to be on the public company, the fifth. Now, if you're not a public company, if let's say you're the Koch brothers, you don't need to do this PCAOB. But if you trade anywhere on the public markets, then you have to do it. Um, and it's basically what we do is it's a blessing that like, yes, everything is okay, everything is good. What happened to you is what I'm going to call is the sixth type of audit, which is just basically we're hiring you, go in there, make sure their books are up to snuff.
Hmm.
What companies pay? So if you took General Motors, so there's the big four, KPMG, Price Waterhouse, Ernst and Young, and I'm missing out on the Deloitte. Okay, those four major audits usually, if you take General Motors, they're going to pick one of the four to do one of the four. The cost for them is probably $50 million at a minimum.
They
The
do
audit
this every year.
every year, every year. So the cost that happened to yours, probably they paid an accounting firm, a local accounting firm, maybe a mid-sized firm, regional firm. They probably paid them 5 or 10 grand. Go to all the stores in the mall. Just make sure that their numbers are snuff. Um, what I do is I mean, like right now, I happen to have tons of paper on my desk dealing with a regulatory filing on payroll. Tax accountants, our busy season starts in January because we have to do payroll and we have to do the 1099s and the W-2s. Why do you need the 1099s and W-2s? That's how you do your tax. And that's how the business takes off the expense of payroll.
Okay. I'm sorry, you done?
No, yeah. That's the only way I
Okay.
can explain it.
So are you a CPA?
I am not a CPA. I have a master's of accounting. And my master's of accounting is not in tax. It is actually in very, very obscure uh, subject matter of business valuation and forensic accounting. But
All right.
you
So if I
can't
went to sell my business or I die and my wife wants to sell my business, a person like you would go in to make sure that the price was fair and that the books were kosher.
possibly, possibly. Business valuation is not cheap. So a lot of people don't do it because of the cost involved. It's a very laborious, long process. You're dealing with a lot of gray, and a lot of accountants, the way they think is they think black and red, not in gray. And if you can't make the argument of gray, you're not going to want to do it. You're not going to want to go anywhere near it. I'll tell you an interesting story that just happened. A couple of years ago, I actually decided to get out of public accounting and go into private accounting, work for one company. The company was um, it had three pillars: real estate, um, produce brokerage, and importation of finished tobacco products. They imported cigars. And, I kind of was always like, kind of the first couple months, why did they hire me? This is not, something that I really do. And about 2 months after that, they called me into the conference room. It was owned by three brothers. And they basically said, we didn't exactly tell you everything when you came on here. I said, okay. What really happened was they needed me for forensic accounting to do it. And they basically said it's cheaper for us to hire forensic accountant on staff, pay the salary, than to go out and hire a forensic accountant and go through everything. The previous controller stole about $6.5 million from the firm.
Wow.
So for the next 5 or 6 months, really my job was, A, how did this happen? Why did it happen? How do we stop it? And where's the money? We found the person. We called the police in. Actually, the FBI and the Secret Service didn't want to touch it because they were like, it's too small for us. But because we had a connection with the local police, the police took on the case. They arrested the gentleman. He was bonded out. He tried to flee the country. They revoked bond, so he was in jail. In fact, he got sentenced last Thursday. He got sentenced to 18 years uh, to be a guest of the state of Florida with 10 years probation. But previous Monday, his brother, who they wrote checks to for about $150,000, actually, he came into the office to try to make amends, try to pay things off, and something happened, and he murdered the two brothers who own the company.
Wow.
So, it's crazy things that happen, but this is forensic accounting. One of my specialties in forensic accounting is actually divorce forensic accounting, finding the money. Basically, lawyers are very, very good at law. They're horrible at numbers. So they hire guys like us. We come in, we figure out what the assets are, we look at what everything is. We have no legal standing. Everything has to come from the court, everything has to come from the lawyer, but they give us everything and we figure stuff out and we make hopefully an equitable distribution to everyone. I mean, have there been crazy stories on that? Absolutely. Have there been murders on that? Absolutely. So, um, that's where my degree is in, but I couldn't do that without doing this.
Okay.
And why I'm doing this is I'm really taking a mental break from doing that. That's very, very time consuming. If you have any ounce of emotion, you kind of get involved in some things and you're like, yeah, you don't want to do that. Um, for me, being that I went through a divorce, this actually struck a nerve. So I came here, I did this, and this is for the foreseeable future where I will be.
Okay. We had spoken earlier, and you had told me about I don't know, it sounds like 10 different degrees or certifications that you have. Can you list them, please?
I'll try to cut them down. I have my bachelor's in business administration. I have an MBA with a concentration in finance. I have my master's of accounting in business valuation and forensic accounting. I'm what's called a signing agent down here in Florida, which is basically it's a fancy word for mobile notary. I am a mediator. I'm an arbitrator. I am one test away from getting what's called my CFE, which is my certified fraud examiner. And at some point, I will have to sit down for the CPA. I'm not sure if I'm going to do it if I have a year and a half battle in me. I may do what's called the EA, which is the enrolled agent, which basically, the really big difference between the two is I won't be able to sign off on an audit.
Okay. Sounds like a lot of work.
There's a
Excuse
lot
me.
there.
So the job that you're doing now,
Mhm.
which of your 18 different degrees did you need to do this job?
You really need all of them. You really need all of them because you can't get into this industry without the bachelor's degree. Bachelor's degrees is your entree. My clients appreciate me. They appreciate talking to me because I understand the field of finance. I understand the financial aspects. Uh, but to understand everything, you need to know accounting, which I could have gone in and gotten a job like this with my MBA, but I'm unique. I can charge more because of the Masters of Accounting, because of the background that I have. And kind of like you said, you're like, listen, I sold the business that I had. There's a lot of that. And I go to clients and I'm like, you could sell your business all you want, but why are you going to close your company down? What do you mean? I'm like, well, don't you have an S corp? Yeah, I have an S corp. Don't sell the S corp. Why not? You're not going to be able to take off a whole bunch of stuff that you still have. Or if in the future you want to do something on the side, you're going to save yourself a little bit of cash. Oh, really? And it's little tidbits like that
Mm-hmm.
um, that my clients appreciate. And I wouldn't be able to talk to them about that without the degrees. Look, I spent, this is a second career for me, maybe even you could say a third career for me. My first career was on Wall Street. My second career was teaching. My third career is now in practice. Now, in the practice, I have shifted from what I originally did to what I do now. Within the practice, within practicing, you know, divorce forensic accounting can get ugly and messy. And, like I said, I went through a ugly and messy divorce and, go doing that, especially towards the end, it was kind of like ripping a Band-Aid off of a scab that you have. It kind of, so I like accounting. The reason why I like accounting is the numbers. I get to manipulate numbers every day, and you add a little bit to column A, you take a little bit from column B. What do you have in column C? Um, and I happen to be very, very good at talking to clients. I happen to be very, very good at going in one, two, three, four layers, what's going on to really get the true financial picture. I'm not a financial advisor. I'm not a financial planner. I was in a different lifetime, and I get to have some really interesting conversations with some people over what they have and where it is and what their financial advisor does. And there's a big thing that some financial advisors do, a lot don't, called end of the year tax selling. And clients are, I can't tell you how many in December conversation. What the hell are they doing? Well, it's a tax strategy. They're going to sell now, you're going to take your loss, and you're going to buy it back in January. Oh, why couldn't they explain that to me? Because I have a number of letters after my name and I can explain it to you. But
Excuse me.
that's what happens. If you don't like numbers, accounting is not for you. No matter what you do in accounting, it's all numbers and it's all based around numbers. And you always hear, and I mean, maybe I heard more than most because of my teaching, but you hear just some great, crazy stories. And I mean, down here being in South Florida, I'm very active in the accounting community and talking to our fellow accountants and fellow organizations. And, just some of the stories you hear and some of the stories you get are absolutely, if you can get the laughter out of it, they're absolutely fascinating. And I can't tell you how many times I will watch American Greed on CNBC and they tear the story. And I'm like, oh, I know about that one. Yeah, I heard about that one. Yeah, I was involved in that one. There's a crazy thing going on down here in South Florida, which I was involved in for a very, very short time, and I had to take a leave of it, where the most counterfeited dollar bill is the $20 bill.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know. It's just too much. If they go there and they do the $20 bill. There was in a county below from where I live, there were counterfeit $1 bills that were being circulated at the nudie bar.
Yes.
Um, there are several that are owned by organized crime down here. It was something that organized crime was doing. It's just somehow they were filtering out, and the life of a $1 bill is actually 6 months before it gets destroyed. And people buy the stupid pens with the cut up dollar bill. Those actually are dollar bills. Secret Service got involved, and they basically put a call out to all of the forensic accountants who they've used out in the past, and basically they're like, we've got to get to the bottom of this. And it's still, we know who, what, where, why. It's not profitable yet to trigger any arrests or anything. But it's you do stuff like this, and it's fascinating. It's fascinating. What's the economic impact?
Wait a minute. So the guy goes into the nudie bar
Mm-hmm.
with $100 bill,
Mm-hmm.
and they say, "Here's 100 singles,"
Mm-hmm.
and then you put them in the lady's garments,
Mm-hmm.
and then they end their night with $300 in. They end up with $300, and 200 are genuine, and 100
Well,
are counterfeit.
here's how they're
So,
entering. Here's how they're entering into circulation. At the end of the night, they all cash in and they basically go, "I've got $327 of singles." And so they will exchange it with the club. The club will give them $300 bills, 120. You keep the seven singles and we're good. At the time when they leave, where do they go to eat? Well, the only thing really open is McDonald's or a Waffle House or,
right.
something like that. And what do they go and pay at Waffle House or McDonald's? They're not going to give $100 bill. They may give the seven singles, or they may give the 20 and a couple of singles. Those singles are now in circulation.
Okay. So they're not cheating their girls. They're putting,
They could be. The bills are, I mean, if you held one of the bills and you knew anything about money, which if you become a forensic accountant, you have to learn about money, you're going to say that they're fake. They feel fake, but it's a $1 bill. So could a $1, it's not fake and everything like that. So are they cheating their employees? Who's going to really stop a person for a $1 bill? Even though there probably will be people out there, but that's what's going on.
I've seen
And
$1 bills that were, you can go to the US Mint on a tour and you can get a sheet, and then you cut them yourself, and they're not always cut perfectly. It's possible that some of those were counterfeits. But you're right. I'm not going to spend a half an hour taking the bill and
yeah,
going like this and rubbing paper
yeah.
over it.
That's why the $20 bill is the largest counterfeit bill in the United States because where do you get $20 bills? You get it everywhere. Could you imagine you go out to dinner and your dinner costs $140? I mean, I went out over the weekend. Well, I had one, two, three, four, five, six, seven. Here's eight, here's your tip, here you go. Is the waitress going to then take that little pen and, no. So that's how they get into the system. The
Mm-hmm.
question, the question is, and nobody's been able to figure this out, is where the hell are these people getting the paper to
Right.
make the dollar bills? And
Because the
that's
20s come from dollars that they bleach.
Mhm.
Where do you get the paper for the ones?
Right, right. It's once again, now I'm a believer of stories, and stories are what make things fascinating. Accounting is a horribly boring subject. And when I used to teach, I would always go to my students. The first thing I would say is, "All right, how many people are scared of this course?" And you'd have four or five who raise their hands. I'm like, "Okay, great." I'm like, "So basically, I got four or five honest students. The rest of you are bullshit artists." Because everybody is scared of accounting because they all think it has to do with math, and debits and credits is a boring thing, and you think you're going to have these huge math postulates, which you don't. So the only way to make accounting sexy is you talk about the stories. You
Mm-hmm.
talk about what goes on. What I'm doing right now on payroll, this is not sexy. But talking to a person and saying, "Hey, you had a really good year, you're going to have to owe 600 grand." That's a little bit more sexy than to talk about,
Sure.
payroll forms, talking about
Excuse me.
how, you know, you get into accounting, you get into forensic accounting, and you start dealing with the FBI and the CIA and the Secret Service. And no, you don't have to be part of them. They outsource to qualified individuals, and they call you in all the time because they don't have the staff or the budget to hire what they really need.
Does the
Um,
FBI pay you when they call you in as a
okay.
outsider?
Pay you very, very well. Pay you very well.
I'm amazed that the FBI doesn't look at a $5 million theft as worth their time.
Um, they only have X number of agents
Right.
to work on this stuff. And they have to pick and choose. And the problem with this is there was actually some culpability to the business.
Okay.
So when you take a little bit from column A, you take a little bit from column B, you take from column C, and you look at it and you're like, what is this going to cost us? And what are we going to recover? The recovery was the reason why nobody took it because we were very, very honest. We knew where the money went to, and close to 85% of the money that was stolen was lost because of a gambling addiction. And the majority of that went to Indian gambling facilities. And that's a separate sovereign territory. They have their own sovereign rules. You can't sue to get your money back. So the recovery may have been $1 million. And that's why the FBI really didn't take it on. They're not going to recover. So the restitution on this was, there was a house that he bought here in the United States. It was taken back. It was given to the rifle owners. He had about $50,000 in accounts that was given to them. There is roughly, and once again, I couldn't tell you the currency swap. There is property and about $300,000 in a bank account in Sri Lanka. So there's got to be a process to go through that. Then once he is out of jail, there's a restitution process around that. And I think he has to pay something like $500 a month or $400 a month for the rest of his life. You're never going to make the 5 million back. You're never going to make the five unless he hits the lottery, where at that point, then you get the money back.
Right.
So it's, like talking about accounting, talking about forensic accounting, accounting, you get involved in this all the time. And you see stuff all the time and you could stop it all the time. And there's several times that I talk to clients and I'm like, what the hell's going on with your purchasing there? What do you mean? I'm like, you guys are buying some wacky stuff. What do you mean? And all of a sudden it's you find just by looking at this, you find out asking the questions. Forensic accounting is that's what you do. You're looking for the wacky, for the crazy stuff, for the obscure stuff. Uh, I happen to be down in South Florida because of some of the cases I've worked on and what I've done in the courts. I am a expert witness on security fraud. Now, because of the market's been doing this. There's been no real cases going on, but I can guarantee you that the minute the market starts going down, there's going to be a lineup of security fraud cases, and there's going to be a lineup of people wanting me to testify because I happen to know that. I happen to know what's going on in that. Yes, it stems from my past, but what makes me an expert witness is the degree. Now, once again, is everybody up to going in front of a judge and giving testimony and doing this? Some people don't want to do it. The guy who owns my company, my boss, has no desire to do it. He has no desire to take the firm and to go do dealing with the IRS, doing a representation because he doesn't want to do it. For me, I love doing it. So it's accounting really relies on a lot of skills, a lot of things here. And though, people, once again, I'm going to go back to when I taught, and it doesn't matter, I taught in a couple of local community colleges. You could be going to University of Florida. You can be going to Broward College where I taught. You can go to NYU. Accounting is accounting is accounting. It's the same thing. Nobody takes accounting willingly, but they should, because that's where you learn about businesses. And if you want to do anything in business, even I'm gonna tell one more story, and then I'm gonna let you go on with what your questions. But here you go. There's a big thing down here in Florida. It might be up in New York, it might be in some of the other places, of hospitals buying doctors' practices.
Oh, yeah.
So there was a huge oncology practice down here that was just about to get sold to a huge hospital chain for huge amounts of money. And when they started looking at the books, something didn't look good. Something didn't smell right. And they called the head partner in and basically were like, we got a problem going on here. Well, what's going on? And they told him about it. He had no clue what was happening because he's a doctor. What the hell does he know about accounting? He relied everything on his office manager. And what his office manager was doing for about 10 years was making fake invoices and getting paid the money. And she basically stole about $6 million from that practice.
Wow.
So does the hospital want to pay that $6 million? It was stolen. So this is why whatever you do, you should understand fundamental accounting so you get what's going on. You don't need to understand tax forms, but at least you need to understand ins and outs, what's going on, what's happening. You know, why do I have this invoice on the books for a year and a half? So
So, so she was making fake invoices and then, wait, as a patient or as a vendor?
as a vendor,
So then so she submitted a claim for, we sold you $5,000 worth of staples this quarter. So then they sent a check to the ABC Staple Company, which she cashed. How did they catch something like that?
when they were looking through everything, so all of a sudden, like in healthcare, there are some big vendors that everybody kind of knows. The money to the vendor that she was going for was one of the top 10 vendors of the entity. So when you look at the top, that's the first thing. Who's your vendors? I want to know who's going on here because that's maybe I can loop things up and it may be a potential way of saving money. Saving money
Or
puts more money in my pocket as the hospital. So they looked at it and they saw this one thing, like, what's this company? And what they did, so down here in Florida, we have a thing called Sunbiz. And when you register a company, it has to register through Sunbiz. And they went on there and they're like, what the hell type of companies? Wait, isn't that the office manager who's one of the registered? That's how they found out.
so she should have used a cousin's name.
She should have used a lot of things.
I mean, yeah, so a doctor's office you would have linens and you would have your lab company.
She did something on equipment
Okay.
because equipment is pricey. They did that. And I mean, this was a very, very big, lucrative um oncology practice. So, money was coming in and going out big time. Um, but once again, does a doctor understand how to read a P&L? Not really.
All right. So I'm assuming that you were an adjunct professor
I was.
and then I'm sure that that does not pay $1 bazillion a year.
It doesn't pay $1 billion, and I left right during COVID because it became very political. And I played the political game in the past. I'm not playing it again.
Okay.
So what I said to myself was, I didn't go to school. I didn't get all these degrees and all these debt and everything to have to play a political game. I'm going into practice.
Okay. And then before that, you were on Wall Street. And I know, but why did you leave Wall Street?
A little firm named Lehman Brothers blew up. I
Okay.
went I went then to Deutsche Bank Securities. It just Wall Street changed. It wasn't fun anymore. And then after that, I started a hedge fund. The hedge fund just the markets weren't ready for a hedge fund. They weren't ready for a new one. Um, and I had my calling to better myself. And to my ex-wife, I said, I want to go to law school. And she was like, where the hell did that come from? And I said, I always wanted to be a lawyer. She said, you want to be a lawyer? Be a lawyer. Go to law school. I went to law school for 2 years. I didn't graduate. I got called back down to South Florida. I went to law school up in Central Florida in Orlando. I lived down right outside of Boca Raton. I got called down here. My mother got sick. I was legally, paper-wise, everything to my mom. The doctors basically said, you really should be down here. So I had a conversation with my ex-wife, and she said, listen, I want you to go get your advanced degree. Go get your MBA. And I went to go get my MBA. And then after, I may have had 2 weeks left before I graduated. I saw a gentleman walking in the business school who was lost. Not that he was lost dementia, he just didn't know where he was going.
Mm-hmm.
I went up to him. Can I help you? He goes, oh yeah, can you help me find this room? Sure, come follow me. And we were just talking, and he was the premier um, facilitator and teacher of mediators and arbitrators in South Florida. Made a comment to him. I always wanted to be a mediator. He goes, oh, you go to law school here? I go, no, no, no. I'm here at the business school. I said, I did go to law school. And, we were just talking. Took out his card, gave me his card, and said, when you graduate, give me a call. I said, but I'm not a lawyer. He goes, in Florida, you don't need to be a lawyer to be a mediator and arbitrator. And, I took all of his courses, I did all the prep, and probably for close to 2 years, I was doing family law mediation and a lot of arbitration. It was non-binding because I'm not a lawyer. But in Broward County, I got a lot of cases I was the arbitrator for legal fees. So when the legal fees, everybody questions the bill. Screw you, I'm not going to pay it on. It would come to me, and I would arbitrate that case. I also did some NASD arbitration, which was very, very fascinating. And there were a couple of cases, and I really stopped doing it because I knew people who
Wait.
in
I'm sorry. What are those initials?
NASD, securities arbitrations,
Okay.
National Association of Securities Dealers. Um, because I knew the participants in there, and I had to step away from it. And I said, at this point, I'm going to stop doing that because it's not working out.
Mm-hmm.
And then
Okay. You are an interesting and multifaceted fellow. Would you have stayed with Lehman Brothers if it didn't fall apart?
100% yes.
Okay.
100%. Lehman was a dynamic firm. There's a few reasons why I don't suggest people to go into finance. One of the reasons is finance is quickly becoming taken over by AI. So if it's taken over by AI, where are you going to go to work? And so all of a sudden you have a million kids coming out with finance degrees. AI takes over 25% of them. So now you have 750,000 out there, they're all looking for the jobs. They're all trying to get the jobs. Go for something where you don't have competition. And for accounting, there's no competition because we don't have enough accountants out there. So, but we could talk about that later. The other reason I don't tell people to go into finance was there aren't firms like Lehman Brothers out there. I had a great education. I had great mentors. I had great development there. and cast of characters I dealt with. But you turn on CNBC now, and if you watch it in an 8 hour period, there's probably, I can easily say, 10 to 20 people who are on there talking that I know. Not like, oh, I bumped into them in the subway. No, I could tell you stories of them. And there's a lot of people who don't, you're not going to get that education. You're not going to get that thing. You know, one of the reasons I did not go to a big four accounting firm is the big four accounting firms, they do what I call siloing you. They put you in a silo, and this is what you do. It might be financial services, it might be cannabis, it might be technology. Those are the only companies. I have such a breadth of knowledge on different companies that I've dealt with. You can't siloing me is not the right thing because I have this whole thing. And Lehman, gave me that. Lehman exposed me to that. They gave me a lot of responsibility out of the box early on. Um, and it was a great experience. I was paid exceptionally well. Did I work 100-hour weeks constantly? No, but did I work 100-hour weeks? Occasionally I did, but it wasn't like an investment banking job where they take all the people and they work them and they work them and they work them and then they do all that and then they can them. I mean, there were plenty of times where I did, you know, um, I worked overnight. I remember there was a report that I had to do that I worked my day job. And then at about 6 or 7 o'clock, where everybody left, I wheeled out this little cart with all the reports in it, and I started doing that. And I remember I would leave at like 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning. I would go home. I would sleep for 1 or 2 hours. I would shower. I would change. I would come back. And I did this for about 3 or 4 days until like I basically was like, I can't do this anymore. And I went into my boss's office, and my boss, he came from Brooklyn, so he had the Brooklyn accent, and I went in there, and he says, "You look like crap." I was like, "I feel like shit." He's like, "Get the hell out of here! Did you get the report done?" I was like, "Yeah, the report's done. It's been sent off and everything." He goes, "I'll see you next week." You know, but it was like stuff like that. It's you know, even that interaction kind of showed. um, how it was. You're not going to get that anywhere. It's not out there. And there's some guys that I see on CNBC and I see them talking, and I'm like, I remember when you were sloppy drunk, and so it's just you won't get that. And I tell people, granted, it's Monday. I'm in South Florida. I'm wearing a burgundy polo and jeans. But if I was wearing a suit and a tie, Lehman created me. Lehman made me. And I tell people this all the time. Yes, whatever you want to say, whatever conspiracy theory you want to believe in, Lehman is not with us anymore. But I spent 15 years there, and they made me. They created me. And that's not out there in finance. You don't have that. Um, I do not know Jamie Dimon. I know of him, but one of his lieutenants, I know fairly well. And, you know, her and I, when she was down, they had a conference. She was in Palm Beach. I went to have a cocktail with her, and we were just talking, and she's like, she goes, I love my job. She goes, I know your Wall Street career was cut short. I said, yeah, it kind of was. She goes, but I would trade my job for 10 of the years that you had. I just started laughing. I said, I wouldn't trade any of them. I said, I love my 15 years. Um, and I was just telling my girlfriend the other day, I found my 10-year plaque from Lehman, my 10-year anniversary plaque. And I didn't know what to do with it. Do I bring it in the office? Do I keep it? Do I throw it out? And it's sitting right now out in my office at home on the side. because I just don't know what to do with it. But it brought back just such fond memories. And I mean, the stories I could tell about all the time there, the stories about 9/11. And I mean, right now, the stories about 9/11 and really, let's say my stories about 9/11 started about 4 weeks prior to it because something happened, and we're not going to get into that here. And it really goes to December, January, because that's when I was allowed to go back into my office to go get my stuff out of there and some of the sites that I saw. And I have to, I'm bringing up 9/11 a lot now because my girlfriend's son does documentaries, and he's doing a documentary, or he completed the documentary on the survivors room at the 9/11 museum. And when she told me about it, I started laughing. I was like, I got a whole bunch of stuff to give him and tell him, and if he wants it. But without Lehman, I wouldn't have had that exposure. I wouldn't have had those stories. I had to deal with Steve Cohen when I was at Deutsche Bank because Deutsche Bank did a lot of art financing. He was a big art purchaser, and we had to deal with his office a lot on this. We never dealt with him personally, but he literally, I mean, he made a lot of money dealing with art financing. He's a very, very shrewd business person. But like I'll also say this, and here's a name that some people might know it. I'm good friends with Anthony Scaramucci, who was when Trump 1 was around, the former press secretary for 11 days. I'm friends with him and I'm close with him because of Lehman Brothers.
Hmm.
And the story is, I had to take some leave for an illness. And first day I came back, I was in my office. I literally was going through a paper. I hear somebody walk. Who the hell is Marc Tolman? Where the hell is his office? I need to speak to him. And I kind of pop out of my office. I'm like, I'm Marc Tolman, and I see this little guy come walking down the aisle, comes into my office, slams the door, and he goes, I was told if I need to get anything done here, I need to talk to you. I'm like, you can do whatever you want. I mean, and we developed just this great friendship. And, what he did coming down the aisle was just, his bravado and trying to do his stuff. And, we developed a phenomenal friendship. And I have some absolutely phenomenal friendships from leaving. I'm not going to go through names and anything like that, but, you know, that's because you can't get that anymore. That's one of the reasons why I'm like, don't go into finance. You,
Okay.
you're going to be miserable. You're going to probably get divorced. You're going to have an ulcer. You're going to become an alcoholic because that's the culture and that's what happens. And what I also tell people is the reason why people get into finance is they find it sexy because finance is the future. While accounting is very, very close to finance, why people don't want to do accounting is the past.
Right.
But you can't do the future without the past. And as I said before, go into accounting. We don't have enough accountants out there, and we're losing more every day. So once again, do you want to be in a competitive industry where you're vying for 1 million people are vying for 100,000 spots, or you have 100,000 people vying for 1 million spots?
E- Exactly what is finance?
Finance is the monetary, um, it's dealing with the monetary numbers of the future based off of the past. So everybody talks about, we could take any company here. Let's take Meta because I know something happened with it today. You can't base what Meta is going to do on the future if you don't have the base of the past. So the analysts who are part of finance, they'll look at everything and they'll look at the past and they'll look at what's going on with their numbers and how their numbers work. And they'll take the past numbers and they'll put an equation on that to post future numbers. Now, nobody has a crystal ball. Nobody can figure out if the number's going to be right or not. It's a guesstimate, but it's an educated guesstimate based on the past, based on what accountants do and prove and tell you what's going on.
Okay.
So, like I said, the future is always sexier than the past.
Do you know where gold and silver are going?
Well,
That's a finance person's prediction as opposed to an accountant's.
so accountants are conservative. Finance people are a little bit more, riskier. But, gold and silver are hedges on inflation and they're hedges on uncertainty. So an accountant would tell you that yes, they're probably going to go up, even though they've gone up a lot. They're not going to go up as much as they have because we have inflation woes and we have uncertainty woes here. The finance person will tell you we're going to go up another 25-30% in the next 3 months based on. So you can see where you've got the boring
Mm-hmm.
and you've got the sexy.
Mm-hmm.
Which one, you know?
If there's a 100,000 for a million jobs, I like those odds. So the challenges of accounting, are there any challenges that people need to be aware of? Pitfalls?
Long hours. Uh, so there's the environment right now is very much changing. You're having a lot of venture capital money coming in, private equity money coming in, taking over firms. So you have that. That is a challenge of itself because they need to make money. So they're gonna do what they need to do. Um, Between January to mid-April, you don't have a life. Um, I probably put 60 hours a week in. And literally, I mean, if I wasn't having this, I would probably right now be finishing something and able to go home. Um,
Thank you for your time, sir.
it's deadlines. If you don't do good with deadlines, this is not the firm for you. Um, there's always education. There's always what's new, what's the new thing. We've just this tax season is going to be a little bit weird because we got a whole bunch of new stuff from the One Big Beautiful Bill or One Big Beautiful Act, whatever it's called. Everybody's calling up asking about it, and it's okay, great. Are you over 65? No, I'm not. Okay, well, you don't get that deduction. Do you have a business? Yes, I do. Okay, great. Did you buy any fixed assets, any big assets? Yeah, I did. Okay, great. We've got bonus depreciation. Oh, how come nobody told me about that? So you get all of that. You need to be able to talk to people, and that's a dying art. And if you can't talk to people, then there's plenty of accounting jobs that you don't have to.
Okay.
Uh, but I think talking to people just makes you more valuable.
Okay. You briefly mentioned cannabis.
Hmm.
You can't put the cannabis money in the bank.
Hmm.
So you own a cannabis store. I forget the name of it. Anyway, so you have it. So now you collect all your money in cash because you
Hmm.
can't take credit cards.
Hmm.
So you pay your vendors in cash
Nope.
and you pay your
I
no.
have a little. I have a couple of clients for cannabis. I absolutely hate them. Okay, because you're right. Where can you put your money is in non-federal banking institutions. So it's the local credit union if they will accept you. It's the local bank saving, yeah, like we used to have the savings and loans. They're still out there. It's you've got to find them, and that's where they put it. Or where a lot of these guys are putting their money is cryptocurrency, and they're paying in cryptocurrency. What has happened is some of these guys have lost money to cryptocurrency scams.
We're not
Now,
just talking about valuation of legitimate cryptocurrency. We're talking about
no,
cryptocurrency
listen.
scams.
So you have that whole thing going on. Okay. That's out of my realm. That's, listen, you guys got to watch that. I'm not watching that for you. Um, but you have guys who have lost money to their wallets or their whatever it's called, a crypto wallet getting hacked and somebody stealing the cryptocurrency from them. And it's very, very hard to track it down. Can you track it down? Yeah, you might be able to. It's going to cost you a lot of money. Well, how are you going to pay me?
in
Well, can I pay you in
cryptocurrency.
Bitcoin? No. USD. Well, we don't have any. Well, sorry. I can refer you to somebody who might take it, and you can go to there. And it's the cannabis industry's got a lot of things that need to be done. I thought some of it would have been done in the first year. It wasn't done. There was a lot of issues in the first year. I don't see things happening in the second year. Um, so you've got issues on that, and you're starting to see the issues ripping apart the cannabis industry. You're starting to see bankruptcies, and you're starting to see companies go out of business for the simple fact is that, you can't do it. You have an industry down here in Florida that's different than the industry out in Colorado, that's different than the industry in Atlanta, that's different than the industry. When you have all of that, yes, there's a way to make money on there, but there's also just so much chaos. Like how can we do it? We can't make universal things. I mean, I have a book in my bookcase on valuation of cannabis industry. I bought that book 3 years ago. I could throw that book out right now. It's not it's not relevant anymore. Um, there is one accounting firm that I know of that's very, very central in the cannabis industry, and they have gotten smacked on their hands by the federal agencies, basically saying you guys are being very, very aggressive on what you do and what you do with these industries. So it's I know some people are like, well, the cannabis industry is similar to prohibition and the alcohol. No, no, it's not. No, it's not. Not even close. And this has nothing to do with legalization. This is accounting. This is taxation. You still got to pay your taxes. You still got to file a tax return. You still got to do, you got people working there and you're paying them. You still got to do the payroll reports.
Got to have insurance.
Some of these places can't even get insurance because people know they've got a lot of cash there. How do you pay it? I got to pay cash. Here's the cash. Right before they close, all of a sudden you got somebody coming in with a gun saying, all right, I'm sticking the place up.
Just like legalized gambling, just for the tax revenue. Just fix this
So
federally.
when you talk about tax revenue, and here's, you know, that's all that accountants revolve around, tax revenue, and tax and tax and tax and tax. I've long been a proponent of what is called vice investing. But on that is, listen, legalize the booze. You got to legalize some drugs. I'm not so sure about cocaine. Maybe there's somewhere there. Prostitution, all of this stuff, legalize it. Legalize it. The tax, oh, but there's now going to be a tax, and people are going, who are you kidding? Of course, people are going to do it. But then you have, the acronym NIMBY. Who's going to want it? Not in my backyard. Who's going to want it in their backyard? Oh, I got a red light district in my backyard. Most people nowadays are profiting off of, once again, their houses and their property has become their piggy bank and become their savings. Could you imagine putting a red light district, on the block, 1 block away from you? What's going to happen to your property value?
So you look at accounting as a go for accounting, you'll find a job.
I'm going to go for at least the next 10 years. Absolutely.
Okay.
Now, everybody says, oh, AI, AI, AI. AI will never take my job. It will take the jobs of the people who work for H&R Block, Jackson Hewitt, all of those places, Liberty Tax. It'll take that. It won't take my job.
Somebody like QuickBooks will eliminate the need for bookkeepers quite as much, but
So
you're still
quick,
going to have to look things over.
so QuickBooks is just a program. That is all it is. And yes, the bookkeepers use it. There will probably be some shrinkage in bookkeeping, but it's not a doomsday thing. Maybe less than 10% of the jobs. But if you're going into accounting, you're on a different level, different thing than a bookkeeper.
Okay.
Um, Accountants who work for accounting firms will not be replaced. And as I said, you try to find an accountant right now. I have people once or twice a day, because I have a small accounting business on the side. Are you accepting new clients? Are you accepting new clients? Are you accepting new clients? Are you accept? No, 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 I can't do it. Oh, this one referred you. Let me see how simple it is. Because they're not there. They're just not out there. Now, we all talk about the potential exodus of people out of New York down to Florida. Could you still use an accountant if you move to Florida in New York? Absolutely. Is the New York accountant as versed in Florida taxation? Now, Florida taxation happens to be much simpler than New York. Um, but you have some people, I want to see who my accountant is. I want to be able that if I have to go into my accountant's office, I can do it. So you're going to get, you know, a lot of accountants out there. There's a lot. The accounting firms cannot recruit the numbers that they need. And when you hear that, you know that there's an issue and there's a problem.
So since they can't find the accountants that they need, does it matter where one goes to school to get that accounting degree?
Um, uh, for me, I would say this, that if you're going to go for accounting and you're going to go do it, make sure that the business school has a strong accounting program and strong ties to recruiting for accountants. If they have a strong, then you can go anywhere you want. If they don't, I'm not so sure that that's a good fit. Because yes, when you graduate and yes, you have an accounting degree, sure, you'll find a job, but it's much better getting the internship, getting the job through the recruiting, uh, and really like if your school has a big recruiting, a strong recruiting stance, you're going to get accepted.
That was something I did not understand as an undergraduate.
Most people don't because most people don't get told that, but I got a lot of offers going through the recruiting when I got my master's of accounting that for one reason or another, I didn't accept them. I didn't accept them because, it just location wise wasn't good. What they were offering wasn't good. At the time when I went for my master's of accounting, I was married. I got an offer to go work for one of the big firms, but they wanted me out of their Atlanta office. Well, I'm not going to leave for 3 months, and have to deal with that. That wasn't feasible. Um, as I said, I had no desire to do auditing. That's not my thing. And, well, from one other one, they wanted me to go do financial service auditing. I'm like, no, that's not what I want. So, nowadays it's even become more, the student has more to power to do it. I mean, it's very, very funny. I place somebody into teaching at a local four-year college down here, an accounting, couple accounting classes. I just asked him, I said, what's your accounting made up of, your class made up of? And he started laughing. He goes, I got 35 students. Five of them are accounting majors. The other 30 are because you have to get a business, you have to take, like accounting one, accounting two. So they're not going to go to the accounting firms. So five out of 35, it should be the other way around. 30 accounting students and five not. So this is where you need the accountants. In fact, there was a company, it might have been Rubbermaid or maybe Tupperware or something, one of those companies, where they literally said, we are going to have to delay our fourth quarter numbers because we can't get the audit done in time. We don't have enough people here to do it. The government and the IRS knows of the problem. They've, it's problem number 55 out of 56 problems that they have. So,
Did your fraternity brothers have any did they bring you into the industry or help you along in your career?
no,
Okay.
no,
Can you
no.
give me broad numbers? What does a beginning accountant make 5 or 10 years in, and then 10 or 20 years in?
I'm going to talk about South Florida because South Florida is different than New York and some major metropolitan cities. You could, if you have a bachelor's degree in accounting, you can easily start at 70, 75,000 plus, once again, some of the firms pay overtime. You get a bonus, you get, dot, 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 dot. You go in 10 years in, you should have some type of license, some type of certification. If you have the CPA, in 10 years in, you can go work privately and be a controller or a CFO at a firm. And I mean, I just saw something today, a CFO at a firm, the package was 150,000 relocation bonus plus bonus. 10, 20 years in, you can do consulting, you can own your own firm, you can own your own practice. Bob, Bob, Bob. The sky's the limit.
Okay.
Sky's the limit. Here's some real numbers. So if you do divorce forensic accounting, first of all, there's a huge need for that. Uh, if you get the certifications, and usually kind of what they say is you need to have the CPA plus two certifications. So it's a CPA, it's a CFE, and something else. Maybe it's a master's of forensic accounting or something. You're charging close to about 300 bucks an hour. So I mean, just because my mind is mush, 300 times 40 hours times 52 weeks, that's $624,000.
Can you get 40 hours worth of work a week for 50 weeks?
Sure,
Okay.
sure. How many divorces are going on out there?
Thank God, not mine.
Okay. So, we are roughly anywhere between 45 and 50% divorce. Really, forensic accounting is if you have a fair size estate. So what's a fair size estate? Really, some people now are thinking at 500,000. Some people are saying 1 million. Some people are saying above 1 million. You take a house nowadays in a lot of places, and that's $1 million. So then when you start taking a house, well, was it bought with marital funds? Do we do a 50-50 split here? Were marital funds used to enhance the house? If it was used to enhance the house, then we have to do what's called a CA analysis on it to basically say what are you entitled to? What are you not entitled to? You have I mean, I had one case which was, thank God he admitted to it. Uh, you know, it was close to $600,000 of marital assets that he basically bought cash and bought gifts for the secretary at his firm. Now, wife is not entitled to 600 grand, but she's entitled to half of that, 300 grand. So, you start putting in stuff like that and everything in there. It's very, very interesting. As I said, you lawyers don't know the numbers, accountants do. It's accountants who have to tell them the numbers.
I have a brief story. I have a cousin who used to work for the FBI.
Hmm.
He lives in another state, and people call him when the state is getting them for sales tax violations. He said, unless the state is looking for more than $10,000, just pay them.
It's not worth it.
He said, for me to put your name on one of those manila folders is $10,000. So, and
I
that
I I, I do that also. Listen, if I tell people, the IRS is really going after some nitty-gritty stuff, and I tell them if it's less than $1,000, it ain't worth it because you're going to have to pay my hourly rate. My hourly rate is, 2, 3 hours to do that. Just pay the thing, pay it off. Um, divorce forensic accounting is kind of interesting because, you got to bring in so many aspects in here. What's the assets worth? What's the equitable distribution? How many years were they married? Gray divorce. Gray divorce. Now you have people who may have had, a 401k for 10 years. Well, are you entitled? You can't take it today and split it in half. It's fascinating on how you got to look at it and what you got to look there and what goes on there. Um, the amount of fraud that I've dealt with in divorce forensic accountings is astronomical. And like once again, if you're sleuthy and you like to look at things and you like to deal with numbers, it's a great thing. For tax work right now, my hourly charge is $250. Do I do some very, very quick tax? Yeah, I do. But do I do others that take 7, 8, multiple days to do? Absolutely. So there's a lot of money to be made. There's a lot of work. This is, like I said, people look at finance when they really should be looking at accounting.
you went to Queens College and graduated in 94?
Yes. No, I graduated in 92.
I mean, personally, I really appreciate your time, and
Anytime,
I
Stan.
thank you. I know you did this before for the Founders podcast, and now you come on again, and we really appreciate your time and your expertise, and you're willing to share this with the next generation of TEPs or whoever, so that they can figure out their futures.
The stories are the important thing. And as I said before, without telling the stories, things get boring. And, I mean, listen, you thought, oh, we're going to talk to an accountant. It's rah, 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 rah. And we talked about murder, we talked about fraud, we talked about, you know, and that's the way things are. Accountants, you think of accountants as the quiet, nebbishy nerd in the corner. And yes, there are a lot. I know a lot of accountants who fit that button, but there are a lot of accountants who don't. And to kind of get to doing some of the esoteric things, some of the crazy things, you're not that type of person. You just can't be. Um, and it's a lot of work accounting. It's a lot of learning. It's a lot of kind of figuring out. There are times I will sit here and trying to figure A and B out to get it to C. It may take me 20, 30 minutes, an hour just to figure it out. Like where's it coming from? So
All right. Yeah, I was in a fraternity house, and there were a number of accountants, and the the things that they found interesting, it was like, no, I mean, they were interested in and how many lines you draw under a single column. And I said, no, this isn't for me.
That's some of them. For me, I think if I didn't have my Wall Street background, it would be much different. But I have the Wall Street background and I have that Wall Street edginess, knowledge base, that comes into here.
Yeah, you're so much more. Well, obviously, they were 19 and 20 years old and didn't have the worldliness
Right,
that you had, the experience that you have.
right.
So
No, no, it's
you're,
absolutely.
you're a colorful fellow.
Everybody says I should write a book. Maybe one day.
All right, Mark.
Maybe one
Thank you
day.
very much.
Stan, thank you. We'll talk later.
Good night.
Have a good night.